Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So it looks like Trump and Netanyahu are readying themselves to attack Iran again. If you remember, Netanyahu visited White House last week, in fact, and 1 or 2 days later, Trump basically kidnapped Maduro, and now he's looking to attack Iran. So all of these protests happening in Iran, they're no accident. I think this has all been planned. There's a lot of spies and NGOs and pro-Israeli forces in Iran, and they've been there for probably years. Basically, sleeper cells, and they've been activated to cause mass unrest and protests. And they've been doing this all over the world, guys. They've done it in Hong Kong, they've done it in other parts of the world, they've done it in Ukraine, in Maidan. And this is their tactic that they use to basically take down governments. So, for those of you who follow Trump, you would know that previously he very much said that America needs to stop doing regime changes around the world. America needs to stop doing forever wars. They need to stop going into countries like Iraq and the Middle East and fighting all the Muslims and stuff. He said that. But he's just barely 1 year in his presidency, and already he's been pushing regime changes all over the world, especially ones that are friendly towards China and Russia. So those who are in the global South camp, who are doing trade with Russia or China and doing trade in the Chinese yuan. So he's basically targeting those countries. He's not targeting Venezuela for drug trafficking or anything like that, because Venezuela only, probably about 1% of drugs come from Venezuela. Most of the drugs are coming from Mexico and Canada and other surrounding countries, but definitely not from Venezuela. He just wants the oil. And one of the reasons he wants Venezuelan oil because they want to start another war with Iran. And they're scared that Iran might block the Hormuz Strait. And if Iran blocks the Hormuz Strait, the oil prices are just going to shoot through the roof. And that means there's going to be mass inflation all over the world. And Trump is going to be extremely unpopular if that happens. So currently, the oil prices are low, is keeping the inflation down, which is good for America, I guess. But yeah, I think this is one of the reasons they had to go into Venezuela to try and get the oil. But it's failed, unfortunately, for them because the new government in Venezuela, the young lady who's taken in charge, she's also part of the Maduro camp. They're all pretty much the same, and she's going to follow the same policies. And I think Trump may get some oil from Venezuela here and there, and he's also pushing the oil executives to go into Venezuela to kind of drill oil. But the oil executives have come out today to say that Venezuela is uninvestable. They cannot invest in Venezuela because there's still a there's still a problem with security. So if these American oil companies go into Venezuela and there's no security, they could be killed or driven out, or these oil facilities could be bombed. You know, America needs to have boots on the ground if they want full access to the oil and steal the oil. But I don't think Trump is going to do that. There's also issues, obviously, with Greenland. As you know, Trump is looking to invade Greenland. He's picking a fight with the Europeans. And everything is going wrong around the world, guys. It's just escalating. I mean, these are the dying days of the empire, and Trump has gone absolutely crazy. They're also shooting their own, also in America. I mean, I don't know if you guys follow American um, kind of news and stuff, but there was a young lady who got shot in the face 3 times by ICE officers, and these are anti-immigration officers who have their faces covered most of the time. And she was trying to get away. She was reversing her car and trying to get out the way and trying to leave. And these ICE officers basically shot her in the face 3 times. So there's a lot of people online saying that, oh, she deserved it. She was trying to run the ICE officers over. I saw the footage, guys. She wasn't trying to run anyone over. She reversed the car first, and she was just trying to get away. The ICE officer, in fact, he basically jumped in front of the car, and he jumped in front of the car because he basically didn't want to let her go, and she panicked, and I think she was trying to get away, and he was in front of the car. Nobody asked him to get in the front of the car, and he just shot her 3 times in the face. The woman was not a terrorist. The woman was not a murderer. She didn't go out trying to kill anyone. She didn't have any firearms, and they just killed her in cold blood. I've also read that a lot of these ICE officers are former IDF officers from Israel. They train in Israel, and a lot of them are ex-IDF soldiers. So you can imagine what these IDF soldiers are like. They shoot first and ask questions later, and that's what they're doing in America. So all this, genocide that's been going on in Palestine, they're just getting the public ready because it's already happening, guys. They are basically looking for excuses to kill people in America, basically. If you stand out of line, or if you protest, or if you do something they don't like, they will just shoot you and kill you and make up an excuse saying, oh, yeah, yeah, she was trying to run me over. She threw a rock at me, so I shot her. You know, they're just basically, you know, programming the American, you know, the young Americans, and also the all of the Americans, and getting them used to all this bloodshed and killing. And this is what's happening in America right now. Is absolute chaos right now, guys. Absolute chaos. So there's a big demonstrations happening in Minnesota, I believe. Millions of people are on the streets, also in Los Angeles. And the Trump administration, especially JD Vance and all his followers, are saying, "Oh, she deserves to get shot." And these ICE officers, guys, they're not police officers, by the way. These are anti-immigration officers. I mean, what right do they have to start shooting people? Even police officers, when they shoot someone, they have to do it as a last resort. They have to make sure that this person before they shoot them is about to kill them, or has got firearms, or is a danger to public. So yeah, it's just all chaos, guys. So let's talk about Iran right now. I think what's happening right now is Trump is taking out all of China's friends one by one. So they've taken out Venezuela. Venezuela was doing trade with China using Chinese yuan. I think 700,000 barrels of oil were being sold to China. In return, China has invested a lot in Venezuela. We're talking, I think, 50 to 100 billion or something, and Venezuela has been paying back with obviously oil. So, so the next target they want to take out is Iran, because China obviously buys oil from 2 countries: Russia, Iran, and Venezuela, and also like Saudi Arabia and Iraq as well, but mostly from Russia, Venezuela, and Iran, because that's where China gets most of its discounts. So obviously they're trying to have a war with Russia using Ukraine as a proxy. They're trying to take out Venezuela, which has failed so far, but I'm sure they're going to try again. And they're trying to take out Iran. So all of these are, pro Chinese friendly. So the problem is, guys, I've been thinking a lot about this. If America and the West takes out all of China's friends one by one, especially these oil-friendly countries. You know, it's not going to be good for China for many reasons. And obviously, all of this they're doing, they're basically preparing themselves for a major war with China. So before they start war with China, they want to obviously get rid of all of China's friends, all of the countries that China gets oil from. So once they do that, if there's a major war with China, they will basically try and blockade China. The same thing that they did with Japan. They will try and blockade, make sure China gets no oil from Iran, from Venezuela, from other countries. They will block the Malacca Strait. They'll block every access for China to get oil, and that's how they think that they're going to win. So obviously the plan is not working so far. Russia is not losing against Ukraine, so there's no way that they can take out Russia. Obviously, Trump has set his little chihuahuas, the Europeans, to carry on with the fight in Ukraine, and I think that Ukraine war is probably going to escalate and bring in European countries as well. So Russia's going to be extremely busy with that. But what America is doing is taking out all of other China's friends and all the other countries that kind of China deals with. So I know I made a video a couple of days ago saying that, the only true allies that China has is basically North Korea and possibly Pakistan and possibly Russia. Everyone else seems to be, major trading partners, but they're not really military alliances where China would, help them militarily. However, I think that with the state of the world today, I think there should be some sort of Asian NATO or a global South NATO led by, jointly by Russia and China and possibly Iran as well, and also North Korea. And I think these are the only four countries that if they join together and form some sort of Asian NATO or global South NATO, we can call it. I don't want to call it an Asian NATO because Russia is not really part of Asia. I mean, Russia is yeah, some parts of Russia is in Asia, but they are also European and Far East and as well. But this basically block would protect the global South countries, and you need this if you're going to have a multipolar world, guys. You need this. Because the purpose of having a multipolar world, you've got you know if you're a small country and you want to trade with China, for example, and then America says no, and if you say no to America, then what America will do will they will go to your country, push a regime change, or get rid of the leader, put a puppet in place, and this new puppet is going to be America friendly. So all the investments that China put into that country will just disappear overnight. And this is what America has been doing to China and countries that China has been dealing with, especially countries in Africa and Central Asia and Middle East and stuff like that. So countries that, for example, Venezuela, for example, China's got a lot of money and investments in there. If America is successful with this regime change, or they can get Venezuela to basically follow what America says, then all those investments will be just wasted. It's not just Venezuela, but there's African countries that America has successfully done a regime change in. So all that investment that China put is just it's just been a waste really because the new leader will come in. He's going to be America friendly. He's going to throw all the Chinese investments out and bring in American investments, and that's how the world is working at the moment. So there needs to be a mechanism in place where global South countries are not going to be afraid of Americans coming in, doing a regime change, or kidnapping the leader, or having a war with them. So these countries must be able to choose whether they want to, trade and work with China, or they want to, or they've got no choice but to trade and work with America because America's threatening them with violence. So we need to stop that, guys. We need to stop these bullies, and I'm talking about America, Israel, most of Europeans as well, the West, basically, the collective West. They are basically bullying smaller countries to basically stop trading with China, stop trading with Russia, and start, selling their resources or even giving up their resources to America. It's almost like a gangster setup. Like if you have a shop in New York, for example, and the gangster basically will come in and they will say, "Well, listen, you're gonna have to pay us money every single month, otherwise we're gonna break your shop and we're gonna put you out of business and stuff." So it's almost like gangster style, leadership that Trump is doing. And Trump is a gangster, guys. I mean, all these years as a businessman, that he's been, doing this kind of stuff while he was doing business, acting like a gangster and bullying smaller people, smaller businesses, and stuff like that. You can tell that he's been doing that. So this NATO, this small NATO, alliance that will start with China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and there needs to be some sort of maybe um, yeah, there needs to be these four countries first of all joining this alliance. And what's the difference between these four countries and other countries? Well, first of all, the governments are very stable. The Chinese government has been around since 1948, 1949, yeah, and the CPC party. Um, Russia and Putin are pretty stable, and North Korea is pretty stable. They're not going to have a regime change suddenly. And Iran has been pretty much the same government since the 1970s. We got the Grand Ayatollah. So to be part of this alliance, you must be able to kind of have that sovereignty. You know, you're not a puppet of America. You're not, you cannot be regime changed very easily. Like countries that are very democratic, they can be easily, regime changed easily. So you cannot have that. And I think also you have to be very much independent and strong enough to say no to America. And so these four countries, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and I think that's more than enough to start a small NATO alternative, protect the global south. And if you look at these four countries, China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, you can pretty much take on the world, guys. I mean, you have the real NATO alliance. You got full of Europeans. You have de facto alliances like Israel, and obviously you got the main player, which is America. America and China are pretty much, you know, they can stand toe to toe with each other, right? So if you take out America and China, what have you got left? You got Europe. Russia is pretty much fighting alone against Europe right now. Well, see, it's a proxy war with Europe and America and the rest of NATO. So Russia is pretty much can stand toe to toe with Europe. Iran can stand toe to toe with Israel. Israel is also de facto NATO member, guys, because when Israel was being attacked by Iran, you had all these NATO airplanes, French airplanes, British airplanes protecting Israel. They were shooting down missiles and drones and stuff. So Israel is part of NATO, even though it's not official. They are pretty much a de facto NATO member. And America and Europeans will always protect Israel. So Iran would, pretty much take care of Israel toe to toe. China will take care of America toe to toe. Russia will take care of Europeans toe to toe. And North Korea can take care of other de facto NATO members, and I'm talking about South Korea, Japan, for example, because these countries are still occupied by America because they have American troops and American bases in those countries. So you see, these four countries alone can take on the collective West, North Korea, China, Russia, Iran, and then slowly over time they can add more and more members. The members that come to mind are Pakistan, maybe Saudi Arabia, because once you start this new NATO, alliance, countries will start coming in one by one, and they will realize, what, that there is an alternative to the West. There is, a true multipolar world, and to have a true multipolar world, you must be able to protect these global South countries from regime change, from being attacked, from their leaders being kidnapped in the middle of the night. And they need to be protected, guys, because, in the day, it's trade, it's money, it's influence, it's a lot of things, and I think in the past, China never had to do that. When the Qing dynasty was around, the rest of the world was industrializing and stuff like that, and the Qing dynasty kind of fell behind, and this is how what was one of the reasons why the Qing dynasty fell apart because they didn't keep up with the rest of the world, and they didn't keep up enough alliances, and they allowed you know countries like Japan to arm themselves with the latest weapons and stuff. And you've seen what happened. So I think China needs to do more of a role, to protect its allies, but also protect the trade routes, protect its investments, and also to keep build up long-term friendships with the global South. And I think China needs to do that. But China doesn't need to do it alone. They've got Russia's help, they've got North Korea, they've got Iran, and also other countries will join in, like Pakistan, for example. I mean, Pakistan is still a bit dodgy, guys. I mean, I'm not sure about Pakistan yet because Pakistan seems to be equally on the China side, but also equally on the American side. I don't know if you've seen Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. He was really ass-licking Trump, a few months ago. Really came on. He was so cringy, guys. Absolutely cringy. He was just on the stage and he was ass-licking Trump like crazy. So I'm not sure about Pakistan, to be honest. I think they seem to be a bunch of puppets. If Pakistan was under Imran Khan, then it's fine because I think Imran Khan is pretty much sovereign and he has got his own mind and he's a very intelligent guy. This is the clip I was talking about, guys. I mean, this is such a cringy clip. Look at this. I'm not going to go through the whole clip because it's a few minutes long and stuff. I'm sure most of you have already seen it. If you have not seen it, it's on Twitter, and you're welcome to watch it. Yeah, it's absolutely cringeworthy. You're gonna have to take my word for it. And so I'm not sure about Pakistan really. I'm not sure exactly what camp they are in. And when push comes to the shove, I'm not sure whether they will choose America or China. But we'll see, guys. I mean, obviously, Pakistan has got deep-rooted history with China. They've got, Chinese weapons and stuff, and they need China, obviously, to fight off India. But we'll see. I'm not sure about Pakistan, to be honest. What other countries can join this, global South NATO alliance? You know, can Saudi Arabia join? And I'm not even sure about Saudi Arabia because the leader of Saudi Arabia, MBS, seems to be very good friends with Trump. So I'm not even sure if Saudi Arabia would join that, to be honest. Um, I can't think what other countries would join. I think any countries that join this alliance will probably be small, insignificant countries who don't really have much military. Venezuela, for example. Yemen, for example, would join. Um, yeah, I'm really struggling to think who else would join, really. If you guys can uh, think of some countries, let me know because yeah, because this alliance needs to be 100% strong. You cannot have a country joining into this NATO alliance, and suddenly 1 year later they have a change of leader and they want to get out of the alliance, or they start spying, or they start becoming a nuisance. They start giving away shared intelligence. You don't want that. Basically, it has to be the alliance has to be airtight, completely airtight, where you know the leaders are not going to start sending out secrets to America. They're not going to leave the alliance, or they're not going to be spying for America and stuff like that. Because you had that very similar thing happening in BRICS. One day you had a friendly Argentinian leadership who were very friendly towards China, and they were about to join BRICS, and everything was going well. And then America somehow got Milley, elected. It's probably dodgy. It's probably a dodgy election, to be honest. But whichever way they did it, they managed to get an opposition leader elected. And what did he do? He doesn't join BRICS. He starts alienating China. It's very anti-Chinese. So that's their tactics. This is what they do. And that's why choosing countries to join this alliance is very, very important. I think Brazil would be quite a good candidate to join, to be honest. Yeah, Brazil, maybe Yemen. Yemen's not gonna let you down. They will fight, you know, the last man if they had to. But a very, very brave country, full of brave people, Yemen. Um, but yeah, let me know what other countries you might think might join this alliance. But this alliance needs to happen, sooner rather than later, guys. And Russia has got the experience, war experience, and China has got all the necessary manufacturing and weapons and intelligence and stuff like that. North Korea obviously has very disciplined soldiers and training, obviously Iran also is also very experienced with wars and also tech as well. So these four countries, if they join an alliance, that would be great for the global South, and the global South needs that. If we don't have that, then America is just gonna start taking out these countries one by one, and eventually they're gonna come for China, and that's their plan. So I think China needs to be more proactive, stopping that from happening. And even if this alliance grows and they arm these countries to the teeth, they arm Iran to the teeth, it will be just much more harder for America and Israel to do a regime change on Iran. And I think these countries also need to have nuclear weapons as well. They need to be able to protect themselves with nuclear. And the countries that don't have nuclear, I think Russia and China will probably need to house nuclear weapons in their countries, similar to what Russia's doing with Belarus. They have Russian nukes in Belarus in case Belarus gets attacked. I think and these nukes can only be activated by Russian or Chinese soldiers. They won't be activated by any outside influence. So that's my thinking. That's my idea, guys. Let me know if you agree with it or you don't agree with it. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that they need to do as soon as possible. And yeah, it's just getting worse. It's already 2026. We've already been like 10 days, in 2026, and Trump is already starting wars in Venezuela. He wants to start a war with Mexico. He wants to start a war with Greenland. He wants to start a war with the Europeans, like the Denmark. You know, Trump has gone absolutely crazy. He's shooting his own people in America. There's mass demonstrations. Now he's looking to start a war with Iran. It's only 10 days in 2026, and all of this is happening. So this smaller, NATO, anti-NATO alliance needs to happen sooner rather than later. And yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. I'll end it there. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next video.